North Eager Beaver Show.
You are listening to a True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated podcast. The True North Eager Beaver podcasts are proudly brought to you by our founding sponsors, the Misfit Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, your source for science fiction, fantasy, and cozy mysteries featuring a broad diversity of characters, CanadianTarot.com, your uniquely Canadian online eclectic tarot community, and the Peppermaster, hot pepper sauces made from farm-fresh ingredients to thrill your taste buds and expand your mind. Well, good morning and hello, kids, and welcome to Season 4 and episode number 447 of the Daily Beaver Morning Show here on the Crier Media Network. Yeah! Today, recording day is Wednesday, August 14th, 2024, and it looks like it's going to be a nice day here at the Beaver Lodge. Got a little bit of a morning glow coming out through the window here. I'm your host, the Eager Beaver, pronouns he, him, hey, Mr. Beaver, eh? And with me, as you can see, drinking from a very Canadian cup is my good friend, Mr. Grizzly, live from New Brunswick. You're just all over the place this summer, Mr. Grizzly.
Yeah, getting the miles in for sure.
Goes to our founding sponsors, the Peppermaster, the Misfit Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, and CanadianTarot.com. And for those of you on the chat who are guessing, hair up today. All right, Mr. Grizzly. You've been, as the title says, on the road again.
Yes.
You're in New Brunswick on the road again. So how's your mental health today?
Pretty good, actually. I flew in yesterday. Of course, typical travel things being what they are these days. I get to the airport. I'm like, well, I've got 2 hours before my flight. I thought, I always try and get, even to domestic, 2 hours before, because you know what security can be like. It can be a nightmare.
Sometimes.
It wasn't. Literally, there were 3 people.
You just sailed on through.
Oh, yeah. There were 3 people in front of me yesterday, and I sailed right on through like it was nobody's. They went into one line. I went into one. Well, I went in by myself. So it was like, get right through. The longest part was, and this happened to me in Calgary too, my hat popped out of the tray because they make you put your hat on for x-ray. I'm wearing a Panama straw hat. Come on. Okay, fine. Put it on the x-ray. The flaps, when it comes out of the x-ray, knock it off the tray and it gets stuck in there. So I had to get somebody to get it for me. That took more time than anything else, which I think is funny. But then it was like, they're like, yeah, you good? I'm like, okay. So I just sailed on and went down. I'm like, well, I got 2 hours before my flight. It took me from the time I got out of my Uber and walked to security to pass the security checkpoint about 3 minutes, which that's never happened before.
Mr. Grizzly, are you saying that Canada is not broken?
I'm saying Canada is not broken at all.
That will be a shock to the politician. Fun forgot.
Yes, you think? A little bit, maybe. So, yeah, I sailed right on through and just went down. I'm like, well, I guess I'll have a pint because it's 12:10. What else am I going to do? And then because we were supposed to board at 1:30. Then I get a notification boarding at 2. I'm like, oh, okay, well, I guess I'll have another pint, then I'll have a bite to eat. And so I go down there at 10 to 2 because I didn't feel like waiting forever. My phone keeps going to sleep for some bloody reason right now. I don't know why. I've got to keep touching the screen. Anyway, it's annoying. So I go down there and like, okay, we're not ready to board yet. Well, we're supposed to board at 1:55 p.m. We boarded at 2:35 p.m. for a scheduled 2:35 takeoff. Well, we didn't take off until 3, but we landed. We landed on time with the 30-minute augmentation from earlier. So even though we boarded like an hour after the flight was supposed to be in the air, it still went smooth. So I don't know what to say. It just worked. It just worked.
Somebody stepped on it.
Yeah, I think that was the case. We might have had a bit of a tailwind or something, but
a good tailwind.
Yeah, it worked well. So yeah,
cool.
It was a good flight. Although admittedly, the de Havilland Dash 8 is a very small aircraft. There is leg room. The seats aren't very wide because it's like that's it. There's 2 each side. Porter Airlines, which I absolutely love. Free drinks, free snacks, effortless. It was a great flight, and landed, and I met my mom right away, and then my cousin, and we drove back to Miramichi, where I am right now, which is about 75-80 minute drive ish, depending upon traffic. I got in, visited with some family last night, and again, trying to see some people I haven't seen in a while. So I thought, well, my mom's like, you haven't eaten yet. I said, just go down to Pizza Delight. I'm like, yeah, I'll just zip downtown, which is not far because it is a small town. Well, it's technically a city. Yeah. It is a city because you've got like 3-4 communities, Newcastle, Douglastown, Chatham Head, and then Logieville. And there's all these little communities. So it's all Miramichi City now, which has been that way for 20 plus years. But I went downtown, and there's a nice little pub there, O'Donoghue's, I guess it's called, which I don't remember it being a pub the last time I lived here, but I haven't lived here since 1986, 86, 87. 87 was the last time I lived here. So I don't remember if it was a pub back then. But I went and sat down, had a nice locally brewed beer, because I said, sit down. She goes, what can I get you? I'm like, do you have anything local? Because let's face it, when you're, visiting a part of the country, even though I'm very familiar, I have tons of family here. I've spent many summers here. This is not a surprise to me, but I still want to sample the local fare. So sure enough, sat down, had a really nice pale ale. No, wasn't it? Was it a pale ale? It was a Pilsner, sorry. It was a really nice Pilsner. Miramichi, I'll get the name of the brewery, because I'll have another one of those before I leave, guarantee you.
Good. Oh, that's wonderful. Great mood here.
Awesome.
Great mood here. Nothing spectacular to report one way or the other. Just great mood. I'm, when things go well, I don't stop and ask why, and I don't pause to interrupt.
No.
I just ride the wave.
Don't do that.
I'm riding the wave. Things are good. Yep. I'm just grateful. I say thank you, and I move on with my day and keep living my best life.
That's what you should do.
Things are good. Even though the computer still hasn't arrived yet.
Yeah, I know.
I don't know what it is. They keep on saying it's about to ship, and then return around, nope, not shipped yet. Because fortunately yesterday, they said, we'll let you know. So unlike Friday and Monday, I was not a prisoner of my house waiting for someone from Amazon to arrive so I can sign for something.
And exactly.
I actually could go out and join the world.
You have to sign for this because it's an expensive piece of equipment. They need you to sign for it. Here's the thing that's bugging me, though. It's like I'm at a point where, and this is being shipped directly from Amazon, not some third-party supplier. So I don't know what is going on there. So what I may do is,
I'm guessing has something to do with the rainstorms or whatnot. Delayed stuff.
I might just go in, cancel it, and then reorder it and see if that'll be quicker, because this is beginning to be a pain in the butt.
Oh.
Maybe. I haven't decided yet. I'll check into it later today and see what the status is, because it should have been shipped by now. My goodness, I ordered it Thursday. This is Wednesday. It's been almost 7 days. What happened to the 24-hour delivery from Amazon that they're famous for, right?
No, not in this case.
Clearly.
All right. Since we were talking about the weather a little bit, it seems that with regard to the wildfires in Jasper, news that I had gotten from people who were a little more local was seeming to indicate that the entry into town might not be able to happen for another 2 to 3 weeks.
Yeah.
It seems that has been revised, and that people will start being able to go back as early as Friday. The people are saying that, firefighters, how would I put it? They're saying that the fire is still not under control, so it's still burning out of control, but they do have it 99% contained.
Okay.
So hoping for better weather and having more people down, might be able to bring it under control, but it is not yet under control. So we have to be very careful for people who are returning home. It seems that people who will be able to go back to their homes because their homes are not damaged yet have to be prepared for an extremely minimal lifestyle. Not all the services are up and running, and about 30% of the town is destroyed. So there are 300. They counted 358 structures that are destroyed at the moment.
That's a lot in a small town.
It really is.
I mean, it's not as destructive as Lac-Mégantic was, but it's not far off, because Lac-Méganitic's entire downtown was decimated. Like there was nothing left of it.
Yeah.
I mean, and
there was nothing
I'm
left,
not making light of what took place in Jasper at all. Please understand that. I'm not making light of it, but it just wasn't as catastrophic. It's catastrophic, no question, not as catastrophic.
Well, there were a lot more deaths in Lac-Mégantic.
That's the other thing too. Yeah, nobody died in Jasper. Nobody.
Yeah.
Nobody.
Mayor Richard Ireland says that it's opening for Jasperites, but not tourists. Quote, "It's a milestone day, but that excitement needs to be tempered with the reality that we face. That reality includes buildings with smoke and water damages and houses that don't yet have heat or power or drinkable water." So that's what I'm saying. Not everybody, even if their home is necessarily standing, are able to actually move back in yet and be fully serviced. Says it will be a big adjustment to the residents, and they're going to need time to adapt. According to Alberta Minister of Municipal Affairs, Rick McIver, he's saying the same thing. Jasper will be open for business soon, but not Friday.
No.
So that's about all I have right now with regard to that. They're trying to reconnect gas, reconnect water, make sure that the grocery stores are full enough so that people can buy food, that the gas stations have enough gas for people who need it, that type of stuff. That the hospital, anything hospital or anything medical that's there might still be able to be offering some types of services, if not everything. Some stuff like that. So it's going to be a little while before it's going to be a long, long time before things get back to normal because a third of the town is destroyed.
And there's a new normal.
But in terms
it's a new normal, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's a new normal. But before you can get to some type of somewhat pace of regular living, if you happen to have been there and the place where you work hasn't been destroyed or a business that you happen to own is still standing, it's like there's a person over there that's looking to get back at his business, but his business is like selling tour packages of some kind. Well,
that's on hold.
Not quite yet for the tourists.
Well, I understand the cable car to Whistler Mountain is not open yet either, which is a big tourist draw because that brings people right up to the top of the mountain. You can hike up, like you get to where the cable car drops you off. There's a restaurant, there's a bar, there's a gift shop, but then there's a 1.2 kilometer hike to the summit. It's not 1.2 kilometers high. It's the trail to get you up there. And that the cable car is closed indefinitely, as I understand it. I do not know when it's going to open. And I mean, it's kind of heartbreaking because that is a big attraction to that area because you can see the whole valley and it's just gorgeous. And I shot some video while I was up there and posted some pictures. I still haven't sat down and put everything together because life's been a little hectic since I got back.
Yeah. You have a lot going on.
Yeah. So next week will be a full week of me doing a whole bunch of studio stuff and editing and that. It's because I've cleared next week's schedule for this specifically.
Perfect. We're talking about leftovers from weather in the province of Quebec because they had those rains because from the remnants of Hurricane Debbie. Farmers in the province of Quebec are reporting that their fields are flooded and saturation zones in the area that are parts of aquifers are still engorged with water as a result of the amount of rain that fell at the time. In the Mauricie region in particular, things are pretty bad, and there are currently concerns about access to potable water for agriculture following a breach of access, following breaches of aqueducts in the area. Though the state of emergency has been lifted in most of the 55 municipalities that were the most affected, they remain in place if you happen to be in Yamachiche, Wentworth, Saint-Didas, or Saint-Julienne. If you're in the region of Chelsea, which is in the Outaouais, the state of emergency there has been extended for 10 days.
Oh my.
So Chelsea got hit pretty hard. Yesterday morning, not sure if it's open yet today, the Dorval Tunnel on Autoroute 13 was still closed yesterday morning because there was an accumulation of water there that was blocking access. And while we were saying the weather reports were calling for about 50 to 75 millimeters of rain in La Malbaie, which is in the Charlevoix region, one of the most beautiful parts of Quebec. By the way, if you ever have a chance to go to the Charlevoix region and take a trip there, please do.
Is that
if you go in the...
Is that near Ile-de-Madeleine?
No, not that far. It's about...
I've been. I just can't picture in my mind
maybe
where it is.
Yeah. It's... I've been too, but I was a teenager. It's not that far from Trois-Rivières.
Okay.
Because I was visiting family there. So yeah, it's a 7-hour drive from Kingston, but it's let's see, where's La Malbaie? It's right on the St. Lawrence.
On the South Shore, correct?
On the North Shore.
It's on the North Shore. Okay.
It's on the North Shore. It's close. The biggest town in the area is called Baie-Saint-Paul. La Malbaie, like this, but it's just past. It's maybe a bit past Le Massif. If you're going up, if you're a skier.
Yeah, I know exactly where it is.
Just a little further north than Le Massif.
I've been there, but it's been many years because I'll be driving home Thursday. Tomorrow. Wow, tomorrow. We go up through. We cross over the province of New Brunswick, go up through Edmundston, up towards Rivière-du-Loup, and then we drive along the South Shore.
Yes,
which is a beautiful drive too. By the way, if you've never done it, it's gorgeous.
Yeah. So if you're in Quebec City, it's about an hour and 45 minutes away.
Okay.
But it's just gorgeous, especially if you're there in like this time of year. Like this, the fiddleheads and what they call a soupe aux gourganes, all the local fare. That like this is the time.
And whale watching too takes place a lot.
Yeah, actually, it's really weird. The first time I remember the year I was there because it was 1984, because it was the first time I had ever seen the Olympics.
Okay.
Because 1980, I didn't see them because we were boycotted in 1976. I was 3 years old, so even if I had seen them, I wouldn't remember them. So the first time I was introduced to the concept of the Olympics as this thing was 1984. Right. And we were there. We were in La Malbaie, and we were like, like the TV was on. And I was like, it's like, go Sylvie Bernier!
Well, it's the summer
golden diving for us.
Summer Olympics were boycotted in 1980. The Winter Olympics took place in Lake Placid, New York.
Yeah, and I probably wasn't old enough to remember those either. Wasn't clued into the concept.
Well, that was the Miracle
the first
on Ice.
Winter Olympics I saw was 84 Sarajevo. Yeah, first one I saw was Sarajevo.
I remember that one too well. But I remember I actually was watching that game, U.S.-Russia.
Oh, the Miracle on Ice.
Well, there was nothing else on. We didn't even have cable at the time, so I turned it on, and I'm like, "Oh, USA and Russia, this is going to be a blowout," and it was not a blowout. And I remember watching that right to the end. I was so excited. I'm like, just because they beat the Russians. And at the time, the Soviet team, the USSR team, was the premier international hockey team on planet Earth. Yep. They were virtually undefeatable, and they lost to a bunch of university and college kids. I think the oldest person on the team was 19 at the time. I mean, these were they were kids. Yeah, absolutely. 19, maybe 20. They're all. I think 90% of them were from Minnesota.
Of course. Yeah, no.
Well, in 1980, that was the state of hockey in North America, in the United States of America. It was mostly northern states. There were, of course, New York and Boston. New York and Boston, but it was primarily Minnesota is where the American hockey players came out of. I mean, it's completely different now. You look at Austin Matthews, scored 60 goals this year, 59 goals. He's from Las Vegas.
Yeah.
So it's the demographic has changed quite a bit since then. But yeah, I remember that. I remember that game well, and it was. I've watched documentaries on it. I watched the movie Miracle, and I still get the goosebumps every time I watch the documentaries or the film. I get that same feeling. And I remember watching that, thinking Craig Patrick is the greatest goaltender I've ever seen. He played the absolute best game of his entire life that day. He was never as good again, but it didn't matter. He did what he had to do on that day.
What I say, when you achieve your personal best in that high moment when everybody's watching, because that's the summit of human achievement for an individual. It is. So talking about La Malbaie, while everywhere else got 50 to 75 millimeters, according to Environment and Climate Change, 135 millimeters of rain fell in Baie Saint Paul. That's a lot. There's a picture here. I'm not sure if you have the ability to put it up.
Yeah, I can.
But this is La Rivière du Gouffre.
Might take a second, but there you go.
Which reported major flooding. As you can see, it's like right at the bank.
Wow.
That is extremely high water there. So a flood protection wall was installed Sunday afternoon in a residential area to Let's try that again. I'm talking like Trump. A flood protection wall was installed Sunday afternoon in a residential area to shield several houses from the rising waters. She sells seashells down by the seashore. Okay. On Sunday morning, the Rivière du Gouffre in Saint-Urbain, north of Baie Saint Paul, reported major flooding. A chalet was swept away by the waters, officials say. It's a situation reminiscent of this past summer when heavy rain swelled rivers in the region and 2 volunteer firefighters died after being swept away by rushing floodwaters. I remember reporting on that. In Saint-Siméon, further northeast in the region, an accommodation center was opened as a precaution for residents in case the situation deteriorates, according to Mayor Sylvain Tremblay. No one has utilized it as of Sunday afternoon. Again, you'll have people being critical. Oh, wow, I can't believe we spent all that money on opening a center that nobody used. Again, I repeat, in an emergency and in a pandemic, when it's done, if your impression was, gee, they overreacted, that means they did well.
That's the key.
Means they did well.
Because there's always going to be the people who scream that you overreacted. Just like that means we saved lives. Period.
Yes.
We did what was necessary.
It's better to overreact and have it in case somebody needs it than underreact and not have it when people do.
So true.
Officials say that's why we pay the taxes.
Yeah, exactly.
Officials say water levels in the Charlevoix region should start to drop around 4 p.m. That was yesterday. Oh, nope. Sorry. I'm just looking at the article. And I went back. I apologize, Kits and Cubs. This article, for some reason, even though I searched it and looked for it, I forgot to read the date, is from October 2023.
Well, you can throw that one in
and
the
not
garbage.
Just now. So everything I just said,
throw it out. Disregard it. You need a coffee this morning, sir.
I just seriously, that is really weird.
Well, in other news, Air Canada pilots may go on strike on September 17th if they don't reach a new collective bargaining agreement, which would affect a lot of people. But it's okay. I mean, pay them. Just pay them. Just go to the table, negotiate a deal, and make it happen before we have to have a disruption. CPKC and CN Rail are looking at going on strike as well, which would halt all freight trains over the next little while, which is bad. That would bring the entire country to its knees in seconds, because if they're not shipping freight of any type, we've got a problem.
Yep. In fact, when it comes to that, it appears that CP, which has a new name, because I guess it
CPKC. Yeah, it's
merged.
Canadian Pacific Kansas City. CPKC.
Okay,
Yeah, they merged with Kansas City
that
Rail
was
Lines. Well, that was a number of years ago they did that, but
yeah.
they just called it CPKC and they didn't really talk about it a lot. But yeah, that's what it is. They merged with Kansas City Railways when they were taken over by an American. Well, I wouldn't say taken over. They were merged, and an American CEO for KC Railways started to run the whole company. I remember reading about that a number of years ago. He said, "Railroading's in my blood."
Yeah. So it seems that even though the strike or lockout hasn't started yet because the rail
Mhm.
companies are threatening to lock out the workers on this one, Canadian National Railway Company says in an internal memo obtained by the Canadian press that the company has begun to embargo some hazardous goods from the U.S. in anticipation of a work stoppage. So goods are
Yeah,
already
it's already begun.
uh, the flow of goods has already begun. CN says it plans to bar more commodities this week if no agreement with workers is reached. On Friday, Canadian Pacific Kansas City Limited said it will temporarily ban traffic of dangerous materials to ensure none wind up stranded on the tracks in the event of job action. The two railways warned last week that they will lock out some 9,300 engineers, conductors, and yard workers on August 22nd unless they find common ground on new contracts after negotiations stalled over scheduling and wages. Shippers and producers say a work stoppage would snarl the country's supply chain, halting freight traffic and disrupting industries. So that has come up. And then I found this in Global. This is probably more about the negotiations itself. Um, but the first article was from iPolitics.
Mhm.
The country's two main railways and their workers remain at loggerheads over scheduling, safety, or salaries, depending on who you ask, as the clock ticks down on contract negotiations. Um, on Friday was the day that both companies warned that they would lock out employees if they couldn't reach an agreement. The Teamsters Canada Rail Conference, TCRC,
Mhm.
which represents 9,300 engineers, conductors, yard workers, and rail traffic controllers, claimed that the CPKC, Canadian Pacific Kansas City, wants to quote, gut the collective agreement of all safety critical fatigue provisions.
We've talked about
Safety
this,
critical fatigue provisions are that were gutted was exactly what caused lac mégantic.
along with the derailment that took place just outside of Palestine, Pennsylvania last year.
Yes, yes, as well. Yes. CN has targeted fewer points linked to fatigue, the Teamsters said, but has also proposed what the union called, quote, a forced relocation scheme that would see some employees move to far flung locations for several months at a time to fill labor gaps. Quote, from the very beginning, rail workers have only ever sought a fair and equitable agreement. Unfortunately, both rail companies are demanding concessions that could tear families apart or jeopardize rail safety, said Teamsters President Paul Boucher in a statement Friday. The railways have put forward two different sets of offers each, stating that they all comply with safety rules, a point the union has not denied. One CN proposal would see employees on a scheduled 40-hour work week with at least 10 to 12 hours of rest between shifts, depending on whether they're at home or away,
Mm.
and either 2 or 3 consecutive days off each week in compliance with the law. The schedule approach to shifts, a comparable offer was tabled by CPKC before being withdrawn conditionally on Friday, would mark a drastic change from the mileage based system of pay that has been in place for decades at both companies. If accepted, the new arrangement would make for more predictability for workers and managers, the railway says. But if an employee reached their destination hours ahead of time, it would also mean they could be assigned to other tasks rather than clocking out on arrival. Quote, none of CN's offers compromised safety in any way. The latest offer proposed third-party arbitration, the Montreal-based railway said in a release Friday, adding that the union has made no counter-proposals. The union has turned down offers of binding arbitration from both railways. CN said it also extended an offer that aligns more with the framework of the current contract and includes pay bumps. Likewise, Canadian Pacific Kansas said the sticking points for its status quo proposal revolve around wages as well as held away pay, income that kicks in after a certain number of hours off shift in a spot that is not the worker's home terminal.
It's
The
reasonable.
Calgary-based railroad operator,
Reasonable.
yep, want, wants to push back the start time on that pay, an adjustment made in response to the longer rest period times mandated by tighter federal regulations. Quote, the status quo style offer fully complies with the new regulatory requirements for rest and does not in any way compromise safety, CPKC said in a release Friday. In May 2023, new rules came into effect that raised the minimum rest period between shifts to 10 hours at home and 12 hours when away, versus the previous 6 and 8 hours respectively. They also capped freight workers' maximum shift length at 12 hours, down from 16. These are very, very good changes from the federal
Yeah, no
government.
kidding.
Again, Canada is not broken. This is doing the stuff right. In a ruling last Friday, the National Labour Tribunal ordered a 13-day cooling-off period as part of a pair of decisions that deemed rail services non-essential, opening the door to a full-fledged work stoppage as early as next week. So that's what's going on with the rail.
And
with regards to
what is it management is trying to do here? Why are they trying to change this, and why are they going to lock these people out? Because I'll give you it's a 3-syllable word. Starts with share, ends with holders.
Mm-hmm.
It's like literally, it's like shareholders want a larger return on every. I need a bigger dividend check every quarter. Well, how can we trim?
Yeah,
How
so
can we trim costs? Let's get rid of people.
let's get rid of people. Let's either get rid of people or get rid of consumer and citizen protections.
That's what it is. Thank you.
It's the first two places they go.
That's it. Because that costs us money. That hurts our bottom line. Yeah, but you got to understand, we have rules and regulations that have been put in place over decades of research, experience. We have unions to protect people. Like there was a time when 120 years ago, children were working in meatpacking plants.
Yep.
And some states in the United States of America, they've brought them back in.
Yeah.
They're bringing back child labor.
And Lac-Mégantic, they cut the staff down from 2 that were necessary on a train to 1. One person had to do all the handbrake things on all.
Well, and you recognize
on a huge rail.
Sometimes those are 2 and 3 kilometers.
Yeah, and it was taking them like 2 or 3 hours to do it. After a full shift, like, listen, cutting from 2 to 1.
It's ridiculous.
There was nobody out there that thought, hey, maybe this is a bad idea. Maybe there should be a second person to like even just check. It's like, is
double
the
check
down right?
Mm-hmm.
So at some point they get really ridiculous when it's like, well, we need to, we can make that leaner. We can do that with fewer people. No, sometimes you need some built-in redundancy now and then.
Well, I'll give you, for instance, here in the line of work that I was in for many, many years, there were often times where we were scheduled to go into a building to install a piece of equipment. And there was this company that we were contracted to out of the US who said, just go in and install it. And I'm like, no. He goes, what do you mean no? And I was the regional manager at the time. Said, no, we don't just send people in to install it. First, we have to notify the building manager, we have to notify the client, and we have to talk to security to get access. He goes, oh, it's just go. I'm like, no. So let me take care of all that. I take care of all of that. And I said, oh, I noticed here you're saying it's 1 technician. He goes, yeah. I go, no, it's not. It's 2 technicians. Why? Because it's after hours. It's after 4 p.m. There's nobody in the building. So if we send 1 technician and he gets up the ladder and falls, he's going to lie there for 3 days because it's a Friday evening. I go, that's in violation of the law. He goes, no, it's not. And I go, yeah, I think I know the law in Canada for labor, for what we do in my line of work. Do not dictate to me how to do things in my country, in my line of work. I am an expert at this. So we are sending 2 men or we're sending nobody. You make your decision. And he got really upset with me. Best part was my GM called me back and said, you did the right thing. He says, we value our people. We're not sending a single person in there totally alone on a Friday evening. Any number of things could happen. What if a piece of equipment suddenly went missing? They immediately point the finger of blame at us. If he falls and hurts himself, we're the ones getting in trouble. And this man could be seriously injured. So it's like cutting back on safety regulations to save a few bucks will cost you 100-fold more.
Because you only have to be wrong once.
Just once. Lac-Mégantic is a prime example.
Yep.
That's a prime example.
Yep.
Yeah. So stop cutting corners to shave a few percentage points so you can return a larger dividend check to your shareholders each month when you realize that people's lives are way more important than a couple of bucks. When is that going to happen? Probably never, because we have greedy people who need more for me, who run this world. And we, you, I, and every kit and cub here, everybody watching or listening, We are the people who will make the change so that that doesn't happen anymore. Our voices need to be heard. And where do we make them heard? At the ballot box every time we vote.
There you go. Well said, Mr. Grizzly. With
Thank
regard
you.
to Air Canada, the union representing Air Canada pilots is preparing for a possible strike next month, as Mr. Grizzly mentioned. Frustrated pilots at Air Canada are beginning to wear lanyards and pins with the message "Strike Ready" written on them. The union and airline have been at the bargaining table for more than a year. The head of the union, Charlene Hoodie, says the big issue includes scheduling and compensation. Quote, "We've seen a large gap between ourselves and our American counterparts. Right now, some of my American counterparts are making twice as much as I do, and the pilots that I represent. Pilots are now voting on whether to give the union a strike mandate. They've been without a contract since September of last year. So they've been negotiating for 11 months and have gotten nowhere. I don't know how you negotiate for 11 months and get nowhere on a contract thing. I really don't. Negotiations have included a mediator. The head of the union says, quote, "We are far apart." The airline says it hopes to finalize the deal over the next several weeks. Any job action would be the latest in headaches for the airline industry following the sudden closure of Lynx Air, strike by WestJet mechanics, and severe weather having damaged the terminal and planes at Calgary Airport. Rick Erickson, who's an aviation analyst, is quoted as saying, "There's seemingly some kind of a crisis going on somewhere. It's just the nature of the airline sector here in Canada. Clearly, pilots at Air Canada have watched other pilots at other airlines, particularly in the US, gain very substantive benefits." And as you mentioned, the earliest they can strike is September 17th. So that's what we have going on in terms of labor action. Now, there's another bit of labor news, which is a little interesting, but for whole other reasons. It seems that the federal government had nominated a certain person to become the head, the chief commissioner or the president of the Canadian Human Rights Commission.
Okay.
And it seems that this may not have been the best choice, but it doesn't seem that anybody did anything wrong from what we can tell, other than the person themselves who had applied for the job.
And who was that?
According here, I have it to Reuters, but I had some notes that I'd taken down. A gentleman named Burju Datani had been retained to get the job, and then he was supposed to start work last week and took some time off instead of starting because it would appear that this person had a social media history of saying some things that are considered quite inflammatory and that some may consider somewhat anti-Semitic. He was writing a lot about the situation in Israel during 2010, not what's going on right now, and also went to several events and made presentations saying these things. The thing is that all the social media posts were made under an alias, and so were the live presentations. So under a different name than his own when he applied. So everybody did the searches, I'm guessing, didn't see anything because nothing popped up under his name. And then there was some investigation reason. Somebody brought it to the attention. There was an investigation. And he seems that when the investigation found these things, he decided, maybe I won't start just yet. I'll take some time off. And now it seems that rather than having the government officially revoke the nomination, because that makes the press too, and there goes the rest of your career pretty much, he has decided to voluntarily step down. So I'm guessing somebody got a phone call, says, we could either revoke your nomination or
you can step aside.
Agree to go sleepy bye-bye.
Yeah.
So he decided to do that.
Why wasn't this done before he was given the job?
Well, because it was all under aliases. So apparently they did all the checks, but
Okay.
when they looked under his name, they took his
found
name
nothing.
and they looked at his social media feeds and they looked at what he'd done and they found nothing. And I was like,
So how did
oh,
they find the aliases, though? Who found that? Who did the digging? Good on them.
yes, that part I haven't heard in the news report. So hopefully it'll be in this article here from Reuters. Canada's new Chief Human Rights Commissioner resigned before he even officially began the role, following an investigation into his appointment and controversy over past remarks he made about Israel. Birju Datani announced his resignation in a LinkedIn post Monday, saying, quote, "I have agreed to resign as Chief Commissioner of the Canadian Human Rights Commission effective today." He would have been the first Muslim person to head the organization. Okay. "I remain a steadfast believer in the Commission's work, mandate, and its importance for our democracy. Canadian Human Rights Commission operates independent of the federal government, and it looks into the human rights complaints against Canada's federal government, among other things." Canada's Justice Minister Arif Virani said in a statement he accepted Datani's decision. "As I have said, maintaining the confidence of all Canadians in the Canadian Human Rights Commission remains my top priority," he said, adding that a process to appoint a new Chief Commissioner will begin as soon as possible. Datani was appointed in June, but his appointment was met with opposition from some Jewish groups. So some Jewish groups brought it to the attention. It says, wait a minute, this guy? Do you know that he publishes under an alias?
Mm-hmm.
Now, this is the second time now.
Hey, guys,
because remember
I'm looking
the funding
for work right now. I could use a new job. Hi. Actually, I'm not kidding. I would happily take that position.
But if you remember, I think it was last year, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, last year, some guy named Leith Maroof had been got a contract from Canadian Heritage because he was working with the Community Media Advocacy Center, and it got that group got $122,000 for projects to help combat racism. And then it was sort of like, do you know who that person that will be running that program is? And then big scandal, like Lori Goldstein of The Sun, like milked that for about 3 months. And was trying to paint the government as being anti-Semitic because they gave the contract to this guy. So clearly there probably needs to be some changes to way things are vetted. But I mean, as well, in this second case, if people are going to be masking their identity and then in the interview process, as the minister said, lack candor, which is one of the reasons I was asked, do you have any, because I'm sure in these types of job interviews, do you have anything in your past? Presentations, social media posts, videos that may be found if somebody breaks and enters into your home and put on. Do you have anything that might cause embarrassment to the commission and the federal government?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, no, not at all. No, not a thing. Not. Oops. So, yes, among other things, he was accused of tweeting, quote, "Palestinians are Warsaw ghetto prisoners of today," and participating in panels on Israel Apartheid Week and the boycott, divestment, and sanctions movement. The investigation into him found that he did not harbor any beliefs that would be characterized as anti-Semitic. That's good, at least. And that he did not demonstrate any biases towards Jews or Israelis. It, however, took issue with his failure to disclose in his application his use of a second name, Mujahid Datani. So, his name is, going back, Birju Datani, but he did all of these presentations and all these posts under Mujahid Datani.
Okay.
So that's why they didn't find it. The investigation report said it found Datani's explanation on why Mujahid Datani was not listed under the other names he used lacked credibility. In a July 30th first letter to Datani, Virani wrote, quote, "Based on the findings the report contains, I wish to inform you that I have significant concerns related to your candor during the process that led to your appointment." And now he's gone.
Justifiably so.
The system worked. It would be nice if the system worked a little earlier, but like I said, in this case, if someone is going to lie and disguise their identity, there's only so much one can do. Whereas Leith Maroof, it was under Leith Maroof and it was all there for people to see.
Yeah.
Like, So not similar situations, but not necessarily equivalent, and probably why there isn't as much uproar about this, because you would expect the conservatives to be all over this, like they were on
Yeah.
the Latham Roof thing, and there hasn't been that much with regard
Yeah.
to that. But
So,
don't lie on your resumes and don't lie in your job interviews, kids and cubs.
period. It'll
Don't.
come back to haunt you.
Because,
Can we
and
go
if you
back to the
and if you have stuff in your past like this that
disclose
caused
it
embarrassment to you, either disclose it or don't
or
apply
step
for the
aside?
job. It's not for you.
Yeah.
It's just
Simple
not
as
for
that.
you.
I'd like to step back to the labor things we were talking about a few minutes ago, if we could. Something Mr. Jim said that I can attest to. It's very true. He says, they want you to do something that's in violation of safety codes, rules, and regulations, and you're lucky to have a job. I have been told, after I pointed out to the boss that what you are asking me to do is not only dangerous but highly illegal, because I just took the course 2 days prior. 2 days prior. I said, what you're asking me to do is not only in violation of the safety rules and regulations, but I can get fined up to $5,000. You'll get 50 and the boss will get 250 and possible jail time. Well, Paul, there are lots of people sitting at home right now that don't have work.
And
And then PNC Bio pointed out that he's heard that same statement, you're lucky to have a job, said to CTOs and CFOs. So what does that tell you? We still very much need unions to
oh yeah,
protect people from bad managers like that, who threaten your job, and dangle the carrot of, well, you're lucky to have a job. These are not good times. We need labor and white collar unions just as much today as we did 50, 60, 70 years ago. And as a matter of fact, I'd say even more so today than we did 50 years ago. And I mean that. I genuinely mean that, because I look at the abuses that take place on people, and as evidenced by our temporary foreign workers, which is basically legalized slavery. It's a form of slavery. They bring people in, they house them, and they warehouse them, and then they pay them less than minimum wage. We need labor unions now just as much as we needed them 50 years ago.
yep.
And you got to remember, too, labor unions post World War II is what created the middle class in this country. It's what
Mm-hmm.
created the middle class in the United States of America. It's what made us two of the most powerful economies on earth. I mean, Canada is doing very, very well economically speaking,
It's for
and
its
we can do
size
better.
too.
Yes, we punch well above our weight. We're Canadian. We always do that.
Mm.
We
Well, I
always
mean,
do that.
we're only 150 something years old, and it's like, and we're already among like the top 12 economies.
157.
Yeah, like this, and we're
Yeah,
already among the top one. Like some countries have been around for way longer.
yeah.
Yeah.
And there's 41.5 million of us and growing every day. So, yeah, we need more labor unions. We need to be able to push back on management that wants to harm the people that generate their revenue stream.
Mm-hmm.
I'm
Yep.
starting to sound like I'm going to rise up, but this is a deeply passionate thing for me, because it not only affects me directly, it affects people that I've worked with over the decades, and I've seen how people have been hurt and harmed on the job, and they're like, "Oh, we'll do everything to make sure." No, you should have done it in the first place, so that didn't happen. If the protections were put in place and you obeyed the rules and regulations, that person wouldn't have gotten hurt to begin with.
Mhm. Yep, I'm seeing like some things from the kits here. Kit Carol says, hubby's a contractor. Many have told him we'll just pay you in time off. Don't report it as a work injury when it happened.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
because that the UAW in the United States is suing Elon Musk and Trump for their union busting talk during their little chat. Also during their little chat, it seems that Ronald Rumprose mentioned something about if he loses the election, he's going to go to Venezuela, which, if you're under criminal investigation and you've got trials, saying out loud that you're a flight risk, probably
yeah.
not the smartest move, Donald. But back to what you were talking about, to temporary foreign workers. Just so happens that a UN special rapporteur recently studied this and specifically said, Canada's reliance on temporary foreign workers is, quote, a breeding ground for contemporary forms of slavery. The damning report for the UN investigator Tomoya Obokata found that deep power imbalances and discriminatory practice in Canada cuts costs for companies but exploits workers from the global south. The rapporteur toured Ottawa, Moncton, Montreal, Toronto, and Vancouver to study the decades-long program, which relies heavily on workers from Mexico, Guatemala, and Jamaica. Throughout the country, he found workers were locked in debt bondage. Many had borrowed money to participate in the program and relied on their Canadian wages to repay accrued debts. He also heard testimony of widespread emotional and physical abuse, wage theft, hazardous work conditions, long hours, sexual harassment, and exploitation.
What did I tell you?
Yep. Quote, the special rapporteur retains the view that the temporary foreign worker program serves as a breeding ground for contemporary forms of slavery, as it institutionalizes asymmetries of power that favor employers and prevent workers from exercising their rights. Under the current rules, Canada's temporary foreign worker program allows companies to bring in foreign workers for sectors when an employer is not able to find local workers. In the past, the agricultural sector has relied heavily on seasonal migrant workers, and just a few days ago, we were talking about one farm that apparently has brought somebody in, has some workers that have been in every year, like for 21 years.
Those are full-time employees. No.
Those are full-time seasonal employees. Those are full-time seasonal employees.
This program was brought in under the Harper government, was it not, or the Chrétien government? Either way, here's the thing. Right now, who's the current government? The Liberal Party. Prime Minister Trudeau. And who's the current Minister of Labour? Is it still Sean, or has he stepped down yet?
He stepped down as Labour. Yes, I believe it is Stephen McKinnon, who's now the Minister of Labour. Because we reported on it. He said he would maintain the same attitude that Seamus O'Regan had with regard to government not interfering.
Well, Mr. McKinnon and Mr. Trudeau, Prime Minister Trudeau and Minister McKinnon, get up off your duff and fix this problem now. This is bad. This is bad for Canada's image. This is bad for Canada's reputation. This is bad on a human level. Get out there and fix it right now. We're calling you out on this.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And remember, for those of us who think we're strong, liberal, stalwart, no, we do not support any particular party. We don't. Well, you're actually a member of the Conservative Party.
Not anymore. It lapsed.
Oh, yeah, okay, right. You were. Yeah, that's right. You were. Yeah, you had a membership for one reason, and one reason only, to vote against Pierre Poilievre becoming the party leader.
Yes, because I was encouraging everybody else to do it, and it would be kind of hypocritical for me not to do it myself.
Right. Well, and I encourage people, but I also said I cannot do it because of the position I was in. I was working for a Crown Corp, so I cannot do that. Yes. But as I've said time and time again, neither you nor I belong to a party other than that, your 1 year period. And we always support the best candidate in our riding, regardless of party. Although the caveat being, the current Conservative Party is not the Conservative Party. It's not the Progressive Conservative Party anymore. It's the Reform Party. So they'll probably not get our vote, but we do have three other choices: Liberal, NDP, and Green to vote for, or perhaps an independent. But what I'm trying to say here is, for those of us who always accuse us of being soy boy cuck Liberal supporters, we're calling out the Liberal Party of Canada and the Prime Minister directly on this.
Yes, we are.
Directly on this.
And the thing about Be Happy You Have a Job also works here as well, because often some of these employers, when the migrant workers get a little too uppity, remind them that we can always just send you back,
Yes.
We don't need you specifically. There's a lot of other people who would like to come and take your place and work under these conditions if you're not happy. So, yeah, that gets used there too. Be happy you have this job. Under the current rules, Canada's temporary foreign worker programs allow companies to bring in foreign workers for sectors when an employer is not able to find local workers. Last year, employers were approved to hire 239,646 temporary foreign workers, more than double the 108,988 hired in 2018. Maybe it's because people are not paying people well enough or not willing to, if it needs to double up that much. Because with the levels of immigration that we have, we should definitely have enough bodies.
You think?
Employers, without having to double the number of temporary foreign workers, right? Employers are increasingly using the program to fill positions in new sectors, including in fast food and construction. The number of people hired for low-wage jobs in the healthcare sector is up more than 15,000% since 2018. Yeah, 15,000%
Not 1,500, 15,000%.
for low-wage jobs in the healthcare sector. Because we don't want to pay Canadians what they're worth to do the jobs.
So we'll hire
And
somebody
governments
from
are
another
allowing
part
it.
of the world who's desperate for work to send money home, but they can't send money home because they're basically indentured servants because of the fact that they're in debt to get here, and then we pay them less than minimum wage. Canada, this is embarrassing.
Yep.
Prime
During
Minister
the
Trudeau, Minister McKinnon, you need to put an end to this right now. Right now.
During the coronavirus pandemic, Canadians got a glimpse of the abuse and exploitation of rampant within a system long ignored by residents. During the coronavirus pandemic, Canadians got a glimpse of the abuse and exploitation of rampant.
There
What
were
is it with
rampant
these
abuse.
new? No, I know that, but
There was
just
abuse.
this,
I've seen videos of temporary foreign workers on farms that were being verbally assaulted, and I mean threatened. I've seen
oh yeah,
some hidden footage, right?
yeah. No, it's just the sentence as written. This is like the third or fourth time in about 2 weeks that I'm reading directly from an article, and there's
Probably
like
written by Chat
sentence
GPT.
structure. Yeah, there's a sentence thing miss, and it's like, I'm sorry, kids. It's like sometimes it's my when I'm listening to something, I'm using a voice to text thing to transcribe because it goes faster than me writing it down by hand. But I usually go back and reread and then correct the words, the mistakes. But this I'm actually reading from a newspaper article in the Guardian. That mistake was there, so I
So
apologize.
that's okay. This comment here from Linda: temporary workers on the local farms make regular
Yes,
use of the food pantry we set up in our little community.
which is leading to the Conservatives saying something like this: "Hey, these things should be for Canadians only, and if they need to come there, send them back." No, but
No,
they're saying that
pay
like
them
this
enough.
restrict. Yeah. Yes, yes. Have them come over here, but then don't let them access that because that's supposed to be for old stocks only, right? Or citizens only. It's like if you bring people here and you're not prepared to house or feed them,
You shouldn't be
because
bringing them here.
humans have two instincts: survive, reproduce. Those are two basic instincts. Do whatever you got to do
Hmm.
to survive and make more of yourself. Those are two things we are genetically programmed to do.
Hmm.
If you're going to bring people here and you're not going to feed them and you're not going to house them, don't be surprised if they show up at the food bank. And if you're going to block them access to the food bank, then don't be surprised that they start breaking into cars.
Well, and
Because people
if you
gotta
pay them
eat.
so little that they can't afford. Oh, here's the thing. So they put them in like a bunkhouse usually, right? For
Yes,
farm.
and there's several of them
They,
and
several people in a bunkhouse, which
no air
is
conditioning.
yeah, and they charge them rent for a bunkhouse.
Mm-hmm.
In a work, it's effectively a work camp, and many of us are familiar with work camps. They send you up north, you're up there for 3 weeks, then you're off for 2 weeks, or up there for 4 weeks, off for 2 weeks. People fly in and out. I've had friends who've worked on oil rigs who've told me about this, and in offshore, the Hibernia platform in Newfoundland, they fly to Vegas. Like they'll literally fly into St. John's, hop on a plane to Vegas for a couple of days, and then come back. But the work camps there are much better. The food is much better. The conditions are much better, and you're paid well. What's happening here is exploitive labor. It's exploiting humanity. It's basically modern slavery.
Mm-hmm.
Call it what it is.
Chris Ramasurup of Justice for Migrant Workers said the rights group had long raised concerns over exploitation of worker and that Obokatar's report was a day of reckoning for sectors that have long relied on cheap labor and turned a blind eye to reports of abuse and discrimination. Quote, "Our frustration is not just about the exploitation, but it's about the racial dehumanization these workers face," he said, adding that he worried that politicians, quote, might weaponize criticism of the program. "We worry this could be fuel for the fire when it comes to the xenophobia and racism targets people with precarious immigration." Sorry. Let's try that again. "We worry this could be fuel for the fire when it comes to the xenophobia and racism that targets people with precarious immigration status." Again, there was an error in that sentence as well.
Mhm.
The word "this" was
Chat
not in there.
GPT.
It's ChatGPT, and it's tripping me up. Ramasarup said injured workers were docked pay or forced to return to the fields before they were healthy. Quote, if they try to get access to healthcare or workplace compensation, they're sent back. We download our healthcare system onto the countries of Global South. Despite political pledges to make changes to the system, nothing has changed, absolutely nothing, said Ramasarup. Under the program, work permits are tied to a specific employer, preventing workers from seeking better paying jobs. If it was at least a work permit that if you went to one of these employers and you weren't being treated well and you can shop yourself around now that I'm here to another farm or another farmer, that would be to the advantage of the workers. But no, they're specifically tied to the actual employer. So if they're mistreated there, their options are stay and be abused or go home.
Mhm.
Not since you're here, find yourself a better situation, as everybody else is allowed to do to find a better situation. And while they pay into the country's social assistance program, they are unable to access it, prompting a recent $500 million class action lawsuit. The legal action, which has not been yet certified, alleges elements of the program breach the Charter of Rights for Workers because migrant workers, even though they are not Canadian citizens while they are in Canada, the Canadian Charter of Human Rights applies to them.
Yes.
Obokata
As well
said
it should.
Yes, Obokata said the only way to end the exploitation was to grant workers permanent resident status, a move the federal government has so far resisted. Instead, Canada's employment minister has pledged stricter and more rigorous oversight and the possibility of sector-specific work permits. But here's the thing again. If, for example, you're one of those workers on that farm who's come here every year for 21 years, if you are good enough to work here, you are good enough to stay here.
Yeah.
The same.
What have I been saying for years now? I meet people all the time who've come to Ottawa from different parts of the world. And I'm like, oh, okay, nice to meet you. And you've been here how long? And you still don't have your citizenship? I said, well, that's wrong. See, if you could spend one full calendar year in Ottawa, one Ottawa summer, one Ottawa winter, and still want to stay here, here's your passport. Because as you know, Mr. Beaver, Ottawa is a difficult city to live in year round. It's a beautiful city. I love it. It's where I want to live. It's why I
Favorite
live there.
city in the world.
But the winter is difficult, and the summer is, well, brutally hot. It's not for everybody, but if you can stomach it and still want to stay, well, why are we holding up? Like literally, here's your passport. Thanks.
Yep. So Ramasirapa concludes by saying, we cannot continue the system of indentured labor. We should never have one in the first place, and we can't profit off the blood, sweat, and tears and sacrifices of Black and brown workers of the Global South.
No, we
So,
cannot.
there you go.
We are not good. This is who we are, right? This is who we are, and we can't allow this to continue. We need to make an end. We need to end this as quickly as possible because it's so wrong on so many levels. It's destructive, it's deadly, it's dangerous, it's harmful, it hurts the brand of Canada. It's a black eye on the nation, globally speaking, that we allow this to continue and turn a blind eye to it. I mean, it, it's really a stick in my craw, if you will. Like I cannot stomach this. I mean it. Can we get an interview with Mr. McKinnon? Can we get an interview with the Prime Minister? Because I want to know why this is continuing.
I'll put in
I
a
want to
request.
know why it's continuing. Please, I want to know, and I'm going to ask him, why is this continuing? Why is this happening? Mr. Jim made a comment earlier. He says, I think it's less about regulation and more about enforcement. Yes, but the laws in this case, they're legally allowed to pay them less money.
Yeah.
Under the temporary foreign program, they're allowed to pay them, I think it's $2 less than minimum wage. So that's a problem. If they're paid less than, and remember, I've said it 1,000 times, the minimum wage is not the minimum you're legally allowed to pay somebody, it's the minimum you need to exist. And if they're paying them less than what it requires to exist, and to begin with, that existing statement of minimum to exist, it's not even a real thing anymore. And it depends on what part of the country you're in. $17 an hour in a small town in southern Ontario might be able to get you by. If you're working in Toronto or Ottawa, nope.
Yep. I know we have to close off soon. Just wanted to mention a couple of things very quickly. If you are following the situation politically in the United States, it seems that there is a little shift on the question of who's better for the economy, because I think we just talked about it a day or two ago. But it seems that in July, there was a polling being done, and only 35% of those surveyed trusted the Democratic Party ticket headed by President Biden to handle the economy best. At that time, Trump and the Republicans were at 41%. Well, August polling shows that Harris has taken the lead 42 to 41. That's up 7 points, with Trump and the Republicans remaining steady. But what's more interesting is where the shift appears to be coming from. In July, 18% of those surveys said they trusted neither candidate. In August, that dropped to 10%. So 8% more trust at least one of the two candidates. Trump did not go up at all, and Harris went up 7%. So it's almost all to the benefit of Harris. And that means those are the independents and the swing voters, the people that everybody is fighting over for, the 70,000 or 100,000 votes in 3 states or something that everybody's fighting for, that will make all the difference. It seems that where it makes all the difference, more of them seem to be indicating that they trust the Democrats on the economy more than the Republicans. So this is good news for people who are looking for not a change in government party in the United States, and for to push back the right. As well, it seems that in Wisconsin specifically, there were some ballot measures because they had some primaries there. And state legislators from the Republican Party in Wisconsin tried to have a ballot measure that would give state legislators equal say with the governor on spending federal money. And it seems that voters soundly rejected that, meaning that the current Democratic governor of Wisconsin, Tony Evers, keeps control over the discretionary funds. People are saying, gee, I'm wondering if this type of enthusiasm is going to translate to November, because Wisconsin is one of those swing states. And right now it seems that the people of Wisconsin, a couple of months before November, don't trust their GOP lawmakers enough to want to have them have equal say on how money is spent than the governor does. That's usually not a good sign. And finally, in international news, the Prime Minister of Japan, Fumio Kishida, says that he will not be running for re-election. He says his decision to step aside is the most obvious way to show that his party will change, because the Liberal Democratic Party in Japan has been marred with controversy, including fundraising scandals. And Kishida's approval rating has plummeted in recent months. And if you think that Justin Trudeau has it bad, a July poll found that just 25% of voters approved of his administration.
Oh, wow.
So again, they're talking about passing the torch to a new generation. Gee, when have we heard that theme before? Yes. The average Japanese citizen is struggling with what is for them sky-high inflation. Now, that must be sky-high for Japan, because at its peak, it reached just over 4%. We hit 8.1. Right now, it currently sits at 2.8. We're similar there. However,
they're calling that sky high.
Well, Japan has been in almost 0% growth for 20 straight years, though, right?
That's true. Yeah.
However, food inflation currently stands at about 3.6, and electricity inflation is at 13.6. So the cost of living is going up, and in Japan, as opposed to other nations, interest rates are rising. Now, they rose from 0% to 0.25%, and they're planning to rise again. Whereas, we're not nowhere near 0.5%. In Canada, however, for interest rates, it seems that we've been talking that interest rates might go down to only to about 4 by the end of this year. It seems that with the job numbers and the pressure that's coming on in the United States for the Fed to cut by 50 basis points next time around in September rather than just 25, that the Bank of Canada might get down to 3.5% by the end of this year rather than 4 instead. So an accelerated schedule, and might go down all the way to 2.75% rather than just 3 by the end of next year. And 2.75% seems to be the equilibrium point.
The baseline.
The baseline. So, hey, things might even be getting, there might be better news come election time next year here for Canada in order to push back on the right. Fingers crossed. All right.
Pushback.
Yes. The year of the pushback, 2024. Mr. Grizzly called it. All right, kits and cubs. That's the end of this episode of the Daily Beaver Morning Show. We hope that you love listening to us because we love making this for you. Remember, sharing is caring, and word of mouth is priceless. So please tell your peeps and poops all about us. Yay! If you would like to support us, you can, because if you don't want to miss an episode, you don't have to. The Ray Girl, she helped you out by sponsoring our pod page. That's podpage.com/TheTrueNorthAcreBeaver, lowercase letters with a hyphen between each one of those words. And if you go there, click subscribe. When we have something fresh off the bandwidth, it comes directly to you. If you would like to support us in other ways, well then, you need to make like Kit Elaine and surf on down to the True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated YouTube page. And there you will find our buttons. We want you to play with them. We want you to click them. We want you to lick them. We want you to flick them. Like, share, subscribe. They're all there waiting for you. So please help us out. It really, really, really makes us happy when you do. And if you would like to help us out in another way, then the QR code that has appeared by Mr. Grizzly's head will bring you to our coffee page. That's coffee, ko-fi.com/eagerbeaver, lowercase letters, all in one word. And there you can leave a little donation to the Help Mr. Beaver Buy a New Computer Fund. Can we say that instead of Hydration Fund? The
Yes,
Emergency Computer Replacement Fund?
Well, it's the operational fund is what it is. We got to pay for this stuff, man. It ain't cheap.
Absolutely. I'm cheap, but the show isn't. So
Show isn't. I'm upwards of 20,000 right now. Is what I've spent on equipment.
Oh, man. I love making that joke. I'm cheap and I'm easy. Yay. Okay. So
I'm neither.
Not really, kids. Not really. But then you could do as Kit Wendy has. Keep up the good work, guys. Love you. Thanks for making my mornings. Sent us a little something yesterday. And as did Kit Tavi G. Thank you for your show this morning, bringing awareness to the treatment of vulnerable children in Ontario and the role the provincial government plays in this horrendous situation. Thank you so much, Kit Tavi G, for that. That one's particularly meaningful to me. So thank you.
That's very close to home.
That one hits close to home. And two other of our kits, some other of our kits have lifted up their hand when I posted that on Twitter and said, yeah, this angers me because I was a kid in care too. So it seems that I'm not the only one in our audience who has passed through the system.
No, you wouldn't be, sir. And I hope that everybody can raise their voices up and we can rise together to put an end to this horrible exploitation of the system of children and this incredible expenditure of money, which should not be taking place. 90,000 a month per child?
Yep. I've got a request into the Ontario Association of Children's Aid Societies to hopefully get a guest come on our show to discuss.
That would be great.
Hopefully, we'll be able to speak to someone today because I would like to get as much data as possible before I appear on Laura's show.
Yes,
tomorrow.
Of course. Well, you want to be informed.
Yeah, because I mean, I have the little bit what I got in the news, but I would really like to hear from people on the ground there.
Mm-hmm.
But of course, they're very, very busy with this, so and they're understaffed, so I might not hear from them. I basically gave them 48 hours notice, which might be a little tight.
Yeah. Might be a little snug. Yeah.
But if you don't ask, you don't get, and I'm going to try anyway. But hopefully, we will get somebody on the show. So thanks for all of you who have supported us with your donations. It encourages us and lets us know that you want us to do more, and more we will have for you. We promise. Now, if you can't support us financially, that's perfectly fine because the gift of your attention is the one we cherish the most. And we would like to hear from you. Oh, Miss Shadika, I was in foster care for 6 months. They didn't want to give me back to my mom. She had a CAS worker who fought for her and got me back. Yeah, I'm guessing if we're similar ages, back in that time, the philosophy of trying to keep the kid in the home if the kid was not in danger was not the standard operating policy then. Yeah. Indeed. So, uh, I forgot where I was. I think I just finished with the coffee. I think, yes. So, because democracy is something that you do, if you happen to be in Ward 15 in Toronto, you have a by-election coming. Elmwood, Transcoda in Manitoba. La Salle, Villemar, Verdun in Quebec, also by-elections coming. And if you live in British Columbia, Saskatchewan, and New Brunswick, you have provincial elections coming up in September. So, make sure that you find your candidate of choice. Make sure that you plan your vote. Make sure that you volunteer in any way that you can, either from a polling station or for your candidates. There's lots of door knocking, envelopes to be stuffed, phone banks, all of that kind of stuff. The Conservatives in BC are sort of unifying in order to try and defeat the NDP, which keeps on tripping over itself lately. Seemed like a really sure deal about 3 or 4 months ago is no longer. But in Saskatchewan, it seems that the Sask party is tripping, so maybe there's an opportunity to get rid of them. And in New Brunswick, Blaine thinks absolutely has to go. So,
Yes.
kids and cubs, you know what to do. And tell all your friends. Remember, friends don't let friends vote alone. Bring friends with you. All right. Mr. Grizzly, do you have some words of wisdom?
Yeah. Write to your MP in regards to the temporary foreign worker program and how it is exploiting people for profit. If you've been coming here for 21 years doing the same job and they classify that as temporary, the law needs to change because that's exploitation. You get no benefits, you get no health care, you get nothing, and they're paying you less than minimum wage in many cases, not every case. In many cases, Mr. Jim said the median income, a medium hourly wage for temporary foreign workers in Ontario is $28 an hour, which is okay. That's good, but this is the first time hearing of this.
Yes, but that's all temporary foreign workers. Those are like people that are brought in to work for IT companies as well as.
Correct.
It's not just, we're just looking at the agricultural sector and the healthcare service sector and fast food.
And the fast food.
Yeah,
those are the people we need to fight for. Yeah, if you're working here on a contract as an IT employee, you're getting paid a good wage, no question. But if you're here picking crops, if you're working at Timmy's, if you're working as a healthcare support worker, you're being exploited and underpaid, and they will dangle that carrot of, well, you should be happy to have a job. I'm like, no, you should be paid a living wage, and you should not be abused.
You absolutely should not be abused. Jeez, not at all. All right, and if you're in Ontario, please write to your MPP and tell them, like, what the F with regard to foster children.
Yeah.
Foster children. Out of all the children out there, probably the ones that are the least able to advocate for themselves. All right? They're the ones that are forgotten a lot. They fall through the cracks. They do. Because everything is written for children living with their parents or living with a parent. And sometimes things are not written to include, or they're not thought of. Because everybody goes, well, everybody, children. It's like, yeah, but what about the other ones? All the ones that are not living at home. Right? So, yes, please, if you have the ability, do write to your MPP if you're living in Ontario and demand better. Because right now, Doug Ford, while claiming he's getting 10 to 15 calls a day on this, it seems that the only thing, if that's the situation and all he did was request an audit, that means that 10 to 15 calls a day isn't enough to really motivate him to get off his duff to do right by kids. So if 10 to 15 is not enough, maybe he needs 20 to 25 or 50 to 100 to start to get it. All right. Sorry, not objective on this one.
No, you shouldn't be.
On this one. All right, Mr. Grizzly, please cue the cock. You are listening to a True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated podcast. The True North Eager Beaver podcasts are proudly brought to you by our founding sponsors. The Misfit Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, your source for science fiction, fantasy, and cozy mysteries featuring a broad diversity of characters. CanadianTarot.com, their uniquely Canadian online eclectic tarot community. And The Peppermaster, hot pepper sauces made from farm-fresh ingredients to thrill your taste buds and expand your mind. We are grateful to the Crier Media Network for its support, Pete Jarvis for our artwork, and Paul Joseph Something for our opening and closing sequence music. Sorry. And the Kits and Cubs mentioned in the chat that it is Minister Michael Parsa, who is the minister responsible for kids in care. So right here on his website, if there's anything we can help you with, please contact us by email at michael.parsaco, Parsaco, at pc.ola.org, or by calling 905-773-6250. That's 905-773-6250. Call now.
Operators will be standing by.
And if you do, we will send you a lovely set of Ginsu knives. No, we actually won't.
No, we won't. No, we won't.
No, we actually won't. But do your thing. All right. Love you.
Gotta go. See ya.